Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Football Therapy with me, your host, Jan. Hope you're doing well. I really do hope that. Welcome back to Chelsea News, of course, the daily series, here on Football Therapy, where I reflect on what's being said about the Blues, giving you my opinion, but of course, more importantly, asking for yours. Chelsea are being sold, the bids have been put in yesterday, and the Rain Group and the UK government are both seemingly having a close look at who to decide, who to take seriously and move on to the next process. News is dropping all the time and I'm reacting to the latest articles. I want to dip into some elements of Matt Slater's article today. It's a very long and detailed article on people who are being considered for the ownership of Chelsea. I will of course link the article down in the description and I won't be reading it all. Make sure you consider subscribing if you want to be kept up to date with my reactions to news headlines, and I do appreciate everyone that drops a like on the video because it's a way of showing your support on the channel. It's worth mentioning, I am just reacting to the latest headlines. I had a lot of people upset with me because I was reading out a Matt Law article yesterday. I think Matt Law's very close to the club. He's always really accurate. There seems to be a lot of people that are upset that I haven't spoken about Saudi media in a couple of days. I've done plenty of videos on Saudi media. They are referenced in this article as well. Again, I'm not making the news. I'm reacting to the latest article. So please do not shoot the messenger. And I have no connections to the club or influence. Some of you might be pleased to know. So it's just my content. That's all it is. So this is by Matt Slater in The Athletic. He speaks about owners that he calls are early fallers and rank outsiders. He starts with Turkish businessman Muhsin Bayrak. Remember that guy, the guy who wants to fly the Turkish flag in London? He was one of the first to link himself with a bid for Chelsea, telling local media, quote, the world believes, we have a 90% chance of completing the deal. Abramovich thinks the same. This led to some to wonder if Bayrak was simply keeping the Premier League club warm. Essentially, people were not able to confirm his wealth, and people were going, is this guy serious? Is he a meme? People speculate, guesswork. Maybe he's Abramovich's man, put in place to act as like a placeholder until the conflict in Ukraine or the invasion of Ukraine is over, and then maybe Abramovich would like sneak back in somehow. Maybe that's true, maybe not. That's just speculation. But one thing's for sure, no one ever took this guy seriously. Another one, which is interesting, another to avoid, says Matt Slater, is A-Full Partners, who optimistically threw their hat in the ring on Thursday. Of course, they were linked up with a guy called Ricardo Silva. Their main investment appears to be a loss-making iron ore mine in Portugal. In other words, a large hole in the ground. There might be a metaphor for that, which is interesting because like reports were coming out that they maybe they are serious ones to take seriously. Speaking of holes in the ground, Ghanaian businessman and politician Bernard Antwi Boasiako, excuse the pronunciation, is another Chelsea suitor whose wealth is built around mining. He claims to earn £1 million a day, or $1 million a day. That would be nice, wouldn't it? $1 million a day from his gold mining company, Hansel, and is written to Chelsea saying he's willing to offer $3.1 billion, just under £2.4 billion. The article goes on to suggest that this Ghanaian businessman and politician doesn't have the money for Chelsea, but it would be a positive move for Chelsea's huge following in Africa. I know I've got a bunch of followers from Africa, which is excellent. It's nice to see the international diversity of my fans and indeed, of course, Chelsea fans. But it's saying he essentially is a non-goer in the buying and purchase process. A lot of Ghanaians actually commented when I was posting about this, saying we don't think this is legitimate. So another one bites the dust in that sense. Let's move on. Okay, well let's give you a bit more information on this first. It's further complicated by the fact that Abramovich is sanctioned in Canada, the European Union, and the UK, and therefore received none of the proceeds from the sale, as we know. This means there's effectively two sellers. These are the two people selling for Abramovich. The Rain Group, the New York-based bank running the process for Abramovich, as we know, and the British government. And they both want a combination of price, speed, and certainty. No fuss, just cold hard cash, and a track record of competence. Now, the UK government demanding a track record of competence. The irony's not lost on me there. Drum kit falls over. Cool. The criteria probably rules out some bids fronted by well-known Chelsea fans. The first of those being the True Blue Consortium, which is fronted by John Terry, captain, leader, legend, and is trying to raise $250 million so he can raise 10% of a stake to buy the club. The plan is also to do this by getting supporters, players, and staff to buy crypto-based fan tokens. Here we go again, NFTs. This is pretty much the same idea that Terry has been plugging to fund his retirement, and it has not gone well. Matt Slater links to another article. No, we are not going to talk about John Terry's NFT campaign. Let's move on and talk about the sale of Chelsea. The second is Nick Candy's supergroup funding proposal. The Candyman Super Fun Chelsea Happy Group, which we want to put fans everywhere. We don't want Spurs fans anywhere. What else? Gianluca Vialli, he's here. Like the Super Happy Chelsea Fun Group. We are not quite sure, but to mix our metaphors, the British property developer did manage to find a backer deep into injury time on Friday, and he teamed up with South Korea's Catalana Kim and Hana Financial Group. So, okay, she came in late. She spoke about there's been no ownership of a is it European team by a South Korean ownership or something like that. I believe she said there is money there. So Candy, Kim, and Hannah sound like a nice combination, but they look like the longest of shorts for this contest, which I found quite interesting because I thought Nick Candy was probably quite a strong bet going into the latter stages of this. So value bets. So this is what Matt Slater is saying. These guys are probably likely. Take a deep breath, ladies and gentlemen, because this next one is probably the least favourite. Woody Johnson, the great-grandson of the founder of Johnson & Johnson Pharmaceutical Empire, is understood to have been looking for a Premier League club for a while. He brought the Jets in 2000, paying, what did he pay, about $750 million in terms of today's money. At the time, he spent $635 million. It was the third biggest purchase in sports franchise history at the time. Of course, Chelsea purchase would blow that out of the water and become the biggest sale, or will be the biggest sale, of all time. That's not going to be enough to bag Chelsea, though, as he speaks. Chelsea will cost about $3 billion, maybe up to £2.5 billion. Which is remarkable for a club that lose more than 145 million last season. In fact, Abramovich has poured 1.5 billion pounds of his own fortune into Chelsea since buying it in 2003, and says he doesn't want it back. That will certainly help the club, but it does also indicate the level of subsidy Chelsea require to keep on going winning trophies. No, I disagree with that. Yes, Chelsea have won because Roman has spent, but it's not a requirement to win. It's the way we've been winning. In fact, Chelsea's been run kind of badly. It's been great for us Chelsea fans because the money's come flooding in and the personal wealth and debt of 1.5 billion has been wiped away. Great, we get to start again. Cheat code, great. But ultimately, it's not run well, and we'd need to become a club to run well. It's really attractive for buyers because they're like, no debt. We're buying a big super club with no debt. That's rare. And, they'd have to change how we run. You don't need a free spending, we'll just buy loads of Galacticos and keep firing the manager and the guy will come in and there'll be enough quality to make it work. No, buy continuity. Do what Liverpool and Man City have done with Klopp and Pep. Give Tuchel give him the steering wheel. Give him the keys, as Alex Goldberg would say. And let's buy what we need, not just random Galacticos wasting money, high wages, and hope they go together. So, Woody Johnson, he's 75 years old. You'll soon learn that many of these billionaires are pretty darn old. He's in good shape, but should he be buying a club at this age? Well, I don't know. Some sources have suggested he's also, with some sources with an inside track, have suggested he's a stint as America's ambassador to UK under Donald Trump. Others believe that could be enough. Basically, he's got connections to Donald Trump, it says there. Now, there's one called Oaktree Capital, which is an American business circles that's understood to have kicked Chelsea's tires. There's a bit more information on that. There's nothing too interesting. It's just another company that have put their hat in the ring, in terms of wanting to buy Chelsea. Other potential owners with conflicts of interest are David Blitzer and Josh Harris. Sorry, we should have probably warned Crystal Palace fans. Basically, these two guys own, or part-own? Yeah, they're co-owners of Chelsea's London rivals, in inverted commas, rivals Crystal Palace. Since 2015, when Chelsea were Premier League champions, by the way. That's the kind of rivals we were. So buying Chelsea would mean they'd have to sell their Palace shares, of course, because you can't own two clubs in a league. Conflict of interest, sporting integrity, that buzzword going around again, etc. So Harris gave the impression that actually he wasn't going to buy a Premier League club. He was going to, if anything, he'd buy an American team like the Denver Broncos or something like that. But it seems he's not quite given up on the Premier League yet, as he and Blitzer have turned up with Sir Martin Broughton to form an Anglo-American consortium. Now, of course, Broughton, who also turns 75 next month, another super old guy. He's basically a British aristocrat. He owns, like, chairman of British Tobacco, British Airways, British Horse Racing, Confederation of the British Industry. Cool, blimey, mate, and all that. So this is the Broughton Consortium. Does that rhyme? No, I mean, nearly has a ring to it. They did release something on Radio 1 this morning, a statement. I've publicised it. I've published it on the YouTube community page on this YouTube channel. You can go see. It's pretty generic stuff. It sounds positive. It's like, well, if you do all that, mate, it sounds like you'd be the best owners ever. But what does it mean at the moment? We don't know. We have to wait and see. PR is rife. Okay, so there's the Broughton Consortium. There is a lot more detail on this. Talks about links to Conservatives and stuff. If you are interested in that, feel free to obviously click the link in the description to read it. But we're going to move on. The favourites. This leaves us with the two heavily faced groups that will also have reign the proof of their value, their worth, the bid itself, and the essentially the business plan. Excuse me while I drink my juice. So yeah, one is the Ricketts family. I do not want the Ricketts family. The Ricketts family, they are part owner of the Chicago Cubs. They've been whispering, and there's been whispers for weeks about the Ricketts family. This is obviously, Matt Law's commented a lot on this as well. As long-time operators of iconic professional sports team, the Ricketts family and their partners understand the importance of investing for success on the pitch while representing the traditions of the clubs, the fans, and the community, the statement adds. A lot of people have... Joe Ricketts is 80 years old, another very old billionaire that wants to own Chelsea. Hans Jorg is in his 80s as well. Of course, there was great controversy that I can't look away from in leaked emails. He allegedly referred to, and this is Joe Ricketts, Muslims as, quote, his enemy because of their, quote, deep antagonism and bias against non-Muslims. And he described Islam as a cult and not a religion. Hugely offensive and problematic, Islamophobic, and for me, it's just, people say what are words, but you just can't come into Chelsea. That Chelsea are trying to develop and cultivate a plane and landscape of diversity and inclusion. You can't have that hanging over the club. That is unacceptable. But we'll see what happens. Okay, so let's move on. Oh yeah, they've also, basically, people were questioning the wealth and the worth of the Ricketts family. They've teamed up with Ken Griffin, who comes in. He runs the Chicago-based hedge fund and Citadel. He's basically worth more than £20 billion. So they've basically got the financial muscle to try and bid for Chelsea now. Next up, is Todd Boehly. He has packed a lot into this 48 years. Having studied in finance in the US and the UK, he started his investment career at Citibank in Credit Suisse. First Boston before moving to venture capital. So yeah, Boehly and money. From there, he moved into Guggenheim Partners for the first setup to invest in the... Okay, right. He's made loads of money. That's that. Let's move on. He bought the LA Dodgers at $2.15 billion. It was the biggest check anyone has ever written for a sports team. And it followed a highly competitive freeway auction after Major League Baseball had effectively repossessed them from the previous owner, Frank McCourt. The lesson here, Boehly has done this before. It goes on. I'm not going to speak. There's loads on Boehly here. I've reported on it a lot, so you guys know about it. Essentially, he's got the money. He's bought the team before, and he wants to win. If you look at his sports franchise, he will invest in good play. If you want a continuity of buying good players in, he'd be seemingly a good option. Also, as well, he's spoken out against the Super League, and for me, that is impossible. Now, Matt Slater, I know a lot of you guys are interested in a Saudi media group. Matt Slater doesn't do a bit piece on them. He says, are we missing anyone? Well, you do not need to spend long on social media to see who most Chelsea fans want on Twitter. They are all cheering for Saudi Arabia flags. If this was a vote rather than an expedited auction with added government scrutiny, the Saudi media group would have won this last week when the first reports of £2.7 billion had emerged. The rationale apparently is that the Saudi owners do not care about returns on investment. They just want to sign Kylian Mbappe and Erling. Okay, so yeah, he's being a little bit churlish there. According to reports, the bid will be led by SMG's chief executive, Mohammed Al-Khareji. I still don't know if I pronounced that right. Who studied in London and spent 3 years working in the capital Deutsche Bank. But the media business of its annual turnover is around 770 million, which is not that much bigger than Chelsea. So he could, so basically he said he wouldn't be acting alone. He'd probably need a consortium. Excuse me. It has been suggested by The Athletic that the Saudi government has encouraged SMG to bid because it would help demonstrate there are plenty of wealthy Saudis in the United Kingdom who are not linked with the state, which is why they have been trying to tell us about the sovereign wealth fund's investment in Newcastle United. The problem with that is it took the Saudis a year to prove to the Premier League that the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman would not be picking the team at St James's Park. Chelsea have a couple of months at best to get this done and dusted. And if SMG really were being nudged into doing this, well, then that's going to make the separation even harder to prove this time. I was under the impression it would be easier to prove than the Newcastle takeover, but Slater's suggesting it would be harder. In fact, it would be not even certain that SMG have made a bid. Contrary to reports, has not been made one prior to Friday, and attempts to find wealthy backers in Saudi. Nizar Kinsella has reported that there was a bid being put together. I guess Saudi media group haven't confirmed a bid like the others, but we can assume they would have put money on the table, surely. That's all there is on this. I will link it down in the description, but I wanted to run through because it's an update. There's some English, there's some Swiss American, there's plenty of Americans, there's even some South Korean influence. There's, for me, Woody Johnson and Ricketts really, really worry me. You know, if there is links to the Saudi government, I have reservations of soft power plays, well, like that article suggested, soft power in the UK, as well as sports washing. I think Chelsea have had enough controversy, and I want to protect Chelsea. I don't want any more sanctions. I don't think Newcastle are safe, to be honest, moving forwards. So that's what I'm concerned about. It's a long video, so thank you for joining me. Please do drop a like, consider sharing, and I'll see you very soon. Peace.
You ain't so tough with that bad boy talk. I'ma get it how I'm living, I'ma walk the walk. Outline my lines, I rap through thought. Body bag the verse, outlined in chalk. In my life seen trouble, hustle on the double. Silence on the trigger like my pick got a muzzle. Yo chick like to guzzle, bad boy stay in trouble. I only love this paper, sorry I don't. I laugh me, baby.